In this video, I'm going to show you how to make military-style Roblox GFX from start to finish. If you want something that looks professional without spending hours figuring everything out, this video will take you through the process step by step. If you have any problems throughout this video or just want to join an amazing GFX community, go ahead and join the GFXRhino Discord server, link in the description below, discord.gg/GFXRhino. We've got a dedicated support channel to help you out, plus a whole awesome community of artists sharing different tips and feedbacks and inspiration and a bunch of nice events and giveaways and all of that good stuff. Let's get started. We're going to start off by gathering all of the different avatars we're going to use for the GFX inside of Roblox Studio. I'm going to be using the Load Character Light plugin here, which you can just get by going under your toolbox, under plugins, and searching up Load Character Light. Go ahead and install it, and then it should be available at the plugins tab at the top. In here, you can type in anyone's username and click Spawn R6, and that will spawn in their avatar. With whoever's avatar, you can also open it up and change all of the different accessories here if you want, so I can delete all these accessories. You can change the body colors under the properties. You can change the ID of the shirt and the pants if you want to change what shirt and pants he's wearing. And there's this other plugin which I will also link that lets you type in any ID of any accessory in the Roblox catalog. You can then import it and then equip it to your character. So I'm going to be using these two characters today, but you can use as many characters as you'd like. To export them, we first of all want to select all of your characters, go under the transform and then the properties here and make sure it's set to 0,3,0. This should make them in the center of the map. Now you can select one and move it along. If you have other ones, you can select them and move them along. You want to just make sure that they're all in a row at the center of the map. Once you've got them both set up, you can select them both, and then in your Explorer, we're going to right click on them and do export selection. Now make a new folder for them called characters, name it whatever you'd like, and then click save. It'll automatically export them, all of the accessories, all the textures you need into that one file. Now you want to head to the link in the description below and pick up the Roblox starter rigs. Type in 0, type in your email, click purchase, and then download the zip file. It's completely free, don't worry, and it is just a plugin of all of these different rigs, and it's the most popular Roblox rigs for Blender. Now load up a new Blender file, delete everything and go up to edit, preferences, add-ons, click install, and then locate the Roblox starter rig zip file you just downloaded and then click install add-on. Make sure you enable it here and then you can close out of this Blender preferences menu. Now we're going to go up to file, import wavefront OBJ, and you want to locate the OBJ file we just exported from Roblox Studio. You want to select it, make sure split by group is enabled, and then click import wavefront OBJ. Because we did split by group, it should split all of the accessories and body parts into different models. What you want to do now is go ahead and select all of the body parts of the rig and delete them all. You can select them from the outliner too if you need. So all of mine are actually named already pro 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12, so I can just select them all like that, click X and then click delete. Now we'll have just the accessories. This accessory is actually out of place, but we'll adjust that in just a second. Now if you select one of your accessories and select the move tool, you'll see that the move tool is in the center of the map there, so it's a little bit annoying to move around. What we're going to do to fix that is select all of our accessories, right click, set origin, origin to geometry. Now the origins or the move tools can be directly on the accessories. Next we're going to head over to the end menu at the side, so you click N on your keyboard to pop this up, and then down on the side there should be this new starter rigs tab because you installed the add-on. Under here we can then select a rig from this menu. Of course I've got two blocky rigs, so I'm going to use a blocky rig. It's going to give us a blocky rig here which we can then equip all of these accessories to. To attach an accessory, you can select your accessory and then shift click on the armature of your rig. Make sure you're not shift clicking on like a mesh of it. You want to be shift clicking the armature, which is the like bones you can see, the outlines you can see. So just shift clicking on that settings cog should select it just fine. Next you want to go up to here, change it to pose mode and select the neck bone. So I've got the neck bone right here which you can see moves the neck, so we can then with that selected go Control P and then bone. Now if I just move the rig along, you'll see that this is attached to the head bone. So if I actually go back into pose mode and I do go ahead and rotate the neck here, it's moving along with that neck and it's not moving along with anything else. So if I move like the arm here, it's not moving along with that, so that is awesome. Now you want to do that for every accessory. Of course you can do that for multiple accessories at once, so I'm going to select all of my head accessories here except for the one we've already attached, shift click on my rig. You can actually do Control Tab to go into pose mode. I'm going to select my neck bone here, Control P, bone. Now of course if I move my head, that's all moving along just well. I'm going to do the same for this leg one here. Now head to the shading tab at the top of Blender. In here you can then select one of the body parts, and in the shader editor down here, go to this main texture right here, click the X and then select your main texture. Locate the file where you exported your character to, and then click this button right here, and you'll be able to see previews of each of the textures you have. You're looking for one that looks like these two here. Of course, I've got two separate characters. I'm not really sure which one's the right one, but for me, they both should work since they have the same clothes anyway. So I'll just select either one, and now we have a fully functioning rig with all of the textures and everything attached. The Roblox starter rigs actually comes with a pretty cool feature where you can actually change the faces to these high quality ones, which I've got a full starter rigs course I'll link in the description as well as in the corner right now if you want to learn how to do that and a lot more with these starter rigs. But today I'm not even going to use those, so we can just come into our character's texture. So I'm going to select one of his body parts, and what we're going to do is in this place where it says HD faces, delete if you don't want them, select them all, click X, and then you can just connect your main texture's color up to the base color. Now it'll just be using your default face you exported the character with. Now we can move on to making a bit of a scene for the characters. So to do that, I'm going to go up to add mesh plane and add in just a flat plane, which you can then click S to scale it up. And I'll also add a camera in. With a camera, you can then click this little toggle camera view button whenever you'd like, and at any time you can click shift and then this little squiggly button pretty much in the top left of your keyboard. If you don't have it, you can go up to view, navigation, and then walk navigation. With this, you can use WASD as well as E and Q to go up and down, and you can even use the scroll wheel to speed up and down. If you go under the object properties with your camera selected, you can rotate it on the Y-axis to kind of tilt it a bit, which usually adds a bit of a dramatic effect. You can also go under the camera properties themselves, and under focal length, you can decrease this a lot to give it more of a dramatic effect. So if I turn it all the way down to like 22, you'll see that it looks a lot more dramatic, like there's a lot more action going on. As well, under viewport display, under composition guides, you can add the rule of thirds if you do want to try and follow the rule of thirds. Depending on if you want to make an icon or a thumbnail, you can go under the output properties here, and under resolution X and Y, you can change how big the camera is. So if you make it a square resolution, like if I just do 1080 by 1080, it's of course going to be a square camera, but I'm going to do 1920 by 1080 since we are making a thumbnail today. We'll come back to the camera and the posing and stuff later. First of all, I want to make a bit of an environment. So first I'll select my plane, click tab to go into edit mode, right click, and then do subdivide. Under the little menu that pops up here, you can increase this to subdivide it. You can set this to whatever amount you want. I'm going to do like 80 maybe. With it subdivided, it then allows us to do a whole lot of things. First, I'm going to head over to Polyhaven, go under the textures, and under here we can find a bunch of different textures. I might look for like a sand sort of one, or some sort of rocky sort of sand texture. I think would look pretty nice. Probably this one here would look good. I'm just going to go for 2K, I reckon, and then we can just click download. After that zip file's downloaded, you can right click and extract all. Now it should extract this blend file as well as the textures. What you want to do is you don't want to touch any of that. You actually just want to go back into your blend file. We'll go up to file, append, locate that blend file, and then we should be able to go into here, go into collection and select just the collection. We don't need the lights, just the collection. Click append, and that will append our texture into the project. So now right here we have got our little sand texture. So what we should be able to do now is with our plane selected, we can go up to the shading tab at the top of Blender. Under this little drop down right here, we can then find our sand texture. So I think it should be sand 001. Now we've got this nice sand texture applied. We've got a whole bunch of different settings here you can mess around with. Over here under the mapping is where you can mess around with the scale of your texture, so on the X, Y, and Z axis, as well as the location if you want to move it, the rotation, whatever you want to do with it, you can mess around with it and make it how you want it. For me, usually I click Shift A and add in a value. We can then connect the value up to the scale here, and what this does is it makes the X, Y, and Z axis all the same one number, so you don't have to change each one. You just change this one and it makes them all the same. Because we've got it subdivided, we can actually make the texture have a bit of bump to it. You do want to make sure that you are in cycles. That's the render engine we're going to be using for this whole project, and it is the best Blender built-in render engine you can use for GFX. From the same Polyhaven website, I'm going to go under models, and then we can search up grass, and there are multiple grass models you can use here. I'm just going to use this one right here. Once again, you can download it. It'll be a zip file which you can then extract. Inside of that zip file, there should be a blend file that you can then append. So here is the blend file. Under collection, there are multiple collections for this grass. We can just select them all and then click append. And now in our outliner, we should have this new collection right here full of all of the different grass models that we're going to use now. So right click on this, go select objects, and you want to move all this grass off to the side. Except for this main ball right here, we do actually need all this grass to source. We're going to be using this grass as source grass that we're going to then spread along this plane. So you want to click on this ball you also got, go under the particle settings here, the particle properties, and under here you should see the particle system you're using right here. You can rename this. In fact, I'll just quickly rename it to grass, and you actually want to go ahead and delete this ball after you've done that. Now you can select your plane, go into the particle properties, add a new particle system in, but we're not going to be using this particle system. We're going to be clicking this little drop down right here and selecting the one we just got, so the grass one. You want to select it, and now your plane should have that same particle system applied. So we got all this different grass around the place. What you can do is you can increase the hair length. It only goes up to 10 if you like drag it, but if you just type in a number, you can set it to something higher like 30. I think that is probably maybe a little bit too big. Maybe we'll go 26, even 27. And then of course you can increase the number. Now with the number, obviously the higher you set it to, hopefully this doesn't crash me, the more laggy it's going to be. So there's 50,000 grass. It is absolutely laggy, but there is actually a really nice way you can get around that, and it's literally as simple as clicking this little button right here, which completely hides your grass in the viewport. So now it is not laggy at all. And because we have this button right here still enabled, it's still going to appear in the render, just not the viewport. So if you do have a lower end computer, that is a really handy thing to use. I'm going to set the grass amount to maybe 5,000, if that. Let me actually rename it because my computer can handle it. I think that does look pretty good. You don't want too much though, because we're going to do something else that's pretty cool, which is paint in where we want our grass. Go under the object data properties, this little like triangle thing here, go under vertex groups and add in a new vertex group. You don't have to do anything other than that in there. You can head back over to your particle properties, scroll down, and under vertex groups right here, change the density to group. Now what you should be able to do is with your plane selected, change into weight paint mode. With this and making sure that the vertex group called group that we just made is the one that we're editing, you can then mess around with the weight and the radius and whatever for this brush, but now you can literally just draw in where you want the grass. If you want, you can come from above by clicking that and then just draw in wherever you want your grass. If you want to do the opposite, if you want to erase it, you can just set the weight to 0. I'm going to disable the grass now that we're pretty much done with it, and the last thing we're going to do to this plane is a bit of sculpting. With our plane still selected, we can go up to here and change it to sculpt mode, mess around with the radius as well as the strength, as well as add or subtract the sculpt. And what this literally lets us do is sculpt our environment. So if we want it to have little hills and things all over the place, I'm going to increase the radius. We can put some pretty big hills in the back here. We'll come and do some little ones with maybe high strength, just some little hills and things all over the place. I do actually want to give these soldiers some guns. So to do that, I'm going to head over to sketchfab.com. There's a bunch of different websites, a bunch of different file types, and just there's so many ways you can get models for your GFX, but I don't really have enough time to go into every single file type and every single method. I might make a whole nother video on that in the future, since it probably does deserve its own video. So go ahead and subscribe and turn on notifications to see that. I'm just going to go ahead and search up gun. Make sure downloadable is selected. You can do whatever gun you'd like. You can do, like, if you know a specific gun, you can type it in there and then just go and find whichever gun you want to use. Make sure that it does have the little download thing in the corner and not like a $sign instead. If it's a $sign instead, that means it is a paid product. I think this gun right here is perfectly fine. So to download it, you want to scroll down and click download 3D model. Now, of course, as I said before, there's a bunch of different file types. You can use the Sketchfab add-on. For this tutorial, I'm not going to use it because GLB right here usually works. Like, I don't think I've ever had a problem using GLB. With OBJ, with other file types, you might have to download the textures separately, connect them all up yourself, so it can just be a big hassle. That's why I'm saying it needs its own video, but for GLB you should be just fine. So go ahead and download a GLB version, and in Blender go up to file, import, choose whichever file type you downloaded. We got the GLB, so we're going to do this one right here. Locate your GLB file and then click import. And there we go. For me, I'm going to just shift click on one of the objects of it. So now we've got one of it selected. We should just be able to do Control J and that'll combine it all into one model. Now you can go ahead and adjust it to fit in the character's hands. Once again, the same way we attach accessories, you can attach guns to the hands of the characters. Now just go ahead and pose up your characters to fit into the environment nice. And there there we go. I think that looks super nice, but it is a little bit empty in the back. So to fill up the background a little bit more, we're going to be heading back over to Sketchfab. Here we can search for a bunch of different models that we can fill up the background with. So I think that scene looks pretty good. We can always come back and adjust it if needed, of course. So let's get on to a bit of lighting. We're going to be going up here and clicking this to go into render preview to be able to preview the lighting that we're doing. A nice little tip is you can click Control B and then drag over the camera view of your render to only render that part out. By the way, sorry if it's a little laggy, but of course it's super dark because we have no lighting at all. So to fix that, we're going to go up to Add Light Sun, add in a sunlight, and I'm going to go under the sun properties here, change the angle all the way up to 180 and change the strength to about 3 or 4. And looking there, we've already got some pretty nice just general overall lighting. I'm just going to pull it off to the side so we can see what we're doing. With sunlights, when you move it, it doesn't do anything, but when you rotate it, it changes the angle of your shadows, or changes the angle that the sun is coming from. So what I like to do usually is just have one sun that gives some general lighting, duplicate it, and then on the second one, I turn the angle down to about 80 degrees, and then I go ahead and rotate it. So now you can see mine is coming from this angle. Whoops, it's coming from this angle. So just looking there, you can already see some very slight shadows being caused by that second sun. If we need, we can turn down the brightness of our first sun and just have the angled sun a little bit brighter. That'll of course make these shadows a lot stronger. So just mess around with that lighting until you get something you like. Of course, you can change the color of them as well if you'd like. I've got a full lighting tutorial coming out soon, but here are the basics for a more advanced lighting setup. If we look around the corner of the characters right now, you can see around the edges of the character there's a little bit of a natural rim light. What we want to do is we want to enhance that, but only on the characters, because as I explained in one of my other videos, we want to make the main subjects of our scene stick out more. I won't go too deep into all of this, but you can see on screen right now this little speed up of all of the lighting bits I'm doing to just make the lighting a lot more appealing. A thing to note with area lights is, of course, if you just have an area light like this, it's also going to be shining on the floor, which can usually end up with some pretty weird looking lighting. As you can see, it's giving the legs some nice lighting, but it's also applying to the floor, which especially from the camera view just does look a little bit strange because there's light coming from nowhere. The way to fix this is using light linking, which is a feature only available in Blender 4.0 Plus. If you don't have that Blender version, you can just go ahead and position the light in a way where it doesn't affect the floor. To use it with our light selected, we're going to go under the object properties, down under shading and under light linking, and in here we can select an already existing collection. So for example, you can select one of your rig collections. So this rig is Starter Blocky Rig 001, so if I wanted to just apply it to this rig, I'd go ahead and change it to Starter Blocky Rig.001. If you don't want to do that, you can just create a new collection where you can then go ahead and drag in any bits you want this light to apply to. Don't copy my setup exactly, just look at the direction that your HDRI or sun is coming from and just enhance it on your characters. If you can't see any natural rim lights, I do suggest having an angled sun like we did, because then you can actually customize which direction the rim light is coming from, as well as of course doing little point lights in the face and all of that sort of stuff to just bring more attention to the characters. The whole idea with lighting and a lot of other stuff we do in GFX is to make the main subjects of our scene, which in this situation is the characters, stick out from the background. After we've got that nice lighting, we can select our camera, go under the camera properties, and down here we should have depth of field. What this does is, as I explained before, how we want to make our characters stick out from the background more, this literally just blurs the background. So you can't really see it right now, but let's go ahead and turn down the f-stop and you can see it blurs everything quite a lot. But if we change the distance to where it is about the characters, you can see now the background is blurred out, but the characters aren't. You definitely don't want your f-stop to be that low. I prefer to do pretty low, even if the background stuff is just very slightly blurred out. It still just brings a lot more attention to the characters in the front. Now we're going to go ahead and render out our GFX. To do that, we're going to go under the render properties, and we're going to make sure once again that it is set to cycles. Make sure as well that if you do have a GPU, you have device set to GPU compute. This will of course render your scene with the GPU. Next step is to go under your sampling here, and under the render sampling, you want to make sure the max samples is set to about 280. By default, it's like 4090 or some crazy amount that you just don't need it that high. You want to set it to anything like 200, 100 even. This really dictates how long your render takes. So if you want super fast renders, you'd turn this down. You want to make sure denoise is enabled, and you can just copy my settings for denoise here. I'll also go down to film, and under transparent, I'm going to make sure to enable it. That'll just make it so when we render, the background is transparent. Once you're all finished with your scene, you can click F12 to render it out. Now it's time to do some post effects. I'm of course going to be using Photoshop because that's what I always use. That's what I'm used to using. But if you don't have Photoshop, you can use the free alternative Photopea by just heading over to photopea.com. It's got pretty much the same layout. In fact, your layout will actually just be a little bit different, but it still has all of the same tools. It's got a little bit less features in certain parts, but you should still be able to achieve an awesome look. And if you know how to use another photo editor, you can use it. You don't have to use Photoshop or Photopea, just use whichever one you know how to use. I'm going to drag in my render right here, and we can see it does look pretty nice. First thing I'm going to do is a camera raw filter. Now with camera raw filter, you can select your layer, making sure it is a smart object. So mine is already a smart object. I can tell by this little icon right here. But if yours isn't a smart object, you can right click and then do convert to smart object. With your layer selected, we'll go up to filter, camera raw filter. Now this is where Photoshop has a lot more features in camera raw filter compared to Photopea. Photopea only has a few things, whereas Photoshop has a whole lot of customization settings here. The way to use camera raw filter is really to just adjust all of the sliders, and then if it looks good, then you use it. Over time with GFX, you will get a better eye for what actually looks good, but just go ahead and mess around with all these settings. If you don't have access to all of those camera raw filter settings like I did, you can just use adjustment layers instead, or you can use adjustment layers as well on top of camera raw filter. So this is our raw render. It looks pretty nice, but it does also look quite dry and bland. As soon as we add a camera raw filter in, it already starts to look a lot more vibrant. But then after a few extra adjustment layers, it starts looking super nice. Now I'm going to head over to unsplash.com and search up sky and find a nice image to use for the sky. I usually like to pick ones that have kind of oceans. Now I'll go up to filter, blur, and then use this blur right here. Blur it up a little bit because of course it is quite far in the background. Make sure not to overdo it though. And once again, if you do it on a smart object, we can always come back and change the blur if you need. Same with the camera raw filter that we did before. Because we did it on a smart object, we can always go back and change it if we need, just by double clicking on it. The same thing that we did before with our render. I'm going to use a bunch of different adjustment layers to adjust the color of the sky and really match it into the scene. If you want your adjustment layers to only apply to a single layer, what you can do is you can alt click and that'll make a clipping mask into the layers. So all of these are now clipped into our main render. So you can see now if I disable them and re-enable them and stuff, they do not apply to our sky. If alt clicking between the layers doesn't work, you can just right click and do create clipping mask, just like that. Right click, create clipping mask, and that'll clip it into the layer below it. I always like to keep everything organized, so I'm going to select all of these layers here, go Control G, and then just name this render. So right there is our main render. We'll do the same for this and we'll call this sky. Next we're going to do some shading. This is very important and it makes everything pop a lot more. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in a new layer above our render. We're going to make sure the blend type is set to soft light. We're going to select our brush and make sure the brush has black, and then when you click X you can switch between the two colors. So we want to make sure one's black and the other one is white. Decrease your flow at the top down to about 10. Now you can mess around with the size and the hardness of your brush. You can also do Control Alt and then right click. I don't know my directions. You can right click and then like drag up and down and left and right to adjust the hardness and size of your brush. It does take a little bit of getting used to these keybinds, but I do, as usual, recommend learning all the keybinds for everything. It just speeds everything up a whole lot. Now what we can do is with a black brush, I'm just going to come in and make these darker shadows, like especially in the arms and around here. I'm going to make all of them darker. So you can already see with that just a little bit of shading there, it makes everything just have a lot more, I don't know, contrast. There's also a bunch of different selection tools here. Like if you want to select a certain object, I can select the object selection tool, select my render here, and I can just drag over this character and hopefully it does a pretty good selection of it. I maybe did the selection a little bit too big. We'll see how it goes, but you can just go ahead and select different objects of your scene. That actually did pretty good. So what I can do now is with my shading layer selected, we can go ahead and click the mask button. All that's doing is, if we see without the mask, the shading is also applying to the background, so I can draw and it will apply to the background as well. But as soon as I have that mask and making sure my layer is selected, not the mask of it, now when I draw over here, it is not drawing over the background, it is only drawing on the character, because that is what the mask is set to. So that can make this shading a little bit nicer by having it only apply to certain objects, and you can do that with as many different layers and masks as you need. That's it. That's how you can create a high quality military-style Roblox GFX. This is the final product here. I think it turned out really, really nice. Let me know in the comments if you want more tutorials like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.